These are the headlines we're following at this hour. Attending the ASEAN summit, President Yoon Suk-yeol warns against any military cooperation with North Korea amid concerns over the regime's arms deal with Russia. The president also called for regional cooperation against the North and resuming trilateral cooperation with Japan and China. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken makes a surprise visit to Ukraine, vowing another $1 billion aid package to the country, including depleted uranium munitions capable of piercing thick armor. The EU unveils special regulations to curb big tech firms' power, including Apple and Google. But South Korea's Samsung Electronics is excluded. Good afternoon. We start with the ASEAN summit in Jakarta. Attending the summit, President Yoon Suk-yeol warned against any military cooperation with North Korea amid concerns over the regime's arms deal with Russia. The president also called for regional cooperation against the North and resuming trilateral cooperation with Japan and China. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
Seoul has warned that any attempt at arms cooperation with North Korea would be a direct threat to South Korea and global non-proliferation, as President Yoon Suk-yeol urged Indo-Pacific countries, including China, to cooperate for peace and prosperity. This came as Yoon attended a summit of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations in Jakarta, joined by Japan and China, in an ASEAN +3 session on Wednesday. First, amid speculation of a potential arms deal between North Korea and Russia, Yoon said attempts at military cooperation with North Korea that harm the peace of the international community must be stopped immediately.
If a major member of the UN Security Council cooperates in military technology or engages in arms trade with a state subject to the most stringent sanctions by the UN, this not only poses a direct challenge and threat to global peace, but also poses a direct threat to the security of the Republic of Korea. We are attaching great importance to it and looking at it very seriously.
Yoon requested that the country's president cooperate in denuclearizing the North and ending its illicit funding activities, such as cryptocurrency theft and the dispatch of workers overseas. Asked whether this was a message aimed at Beijing to put pressure on Moscow and Pyongyang ahead of their potential bilateral summit, a Yoon official told reporters that the president's remarks were made as North Korea's illegal actions are carried out on Chinese territory and on the high seas. He said China did not respond specifically to Yoon's request to fully implement UN Security Council sanctions against the North's regime, but added Beijing wouldn't intentionally take actions to increase Pyongyang's weapons capabilities. He also hinted that a separate meeting between Yoon and the Chinese premier on Thursday is being discussed. Amid geopolitical tensions, territorial disputes and ideological differences, all the more pronounced by President Xi Jinping sitting out the ASEAN and G20 summits this year, Yoon called for a resumption of the trilateral summit and mechanisms between South Korea, Japan and China in order to overcome critical challenges facing the region in joint efforts with ASEAN. As the rotating chair of the +3 countries this year, Seoul underscored the need to expand currency swaps, trade and investment, and sustainable support for small businesses in ASEAN. Yoon also outlined measures to increase food security, innovation and investment in young scientists. Yoon will renew his call for a firm and decisive response to North Korea's threat, as well as greater cooperation for peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific, as he attends the East Asia Summit on Thursday and the G20 Summit in India over the weekend, where the United States, China and Russia will also participate. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Jakarta.
On the sidelines of the ASEAN summit, President Yoon held a series of bilateral talks, including Malaysia, Vietnam, and Canada, on deepening cooperation on trade, defense, and minerals. Our Lee Dae-yeon has more.
President Yoon Suk-yeol on Wednesday in Jakarta, Indonesia, met with a number of leaders on the sidelines of the annual summits involving the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. With the Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar bin Ibrahim, the two leaders discussed developing bilateral relations. They both agreed that the two nations are seeing achievements in sectors of cooperation including trade, investment, and defense, and highly assessed that the sectors are expanding into future industries such as a response to climate change. President Yoon also met with the Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh now for the third time. Yoon highlighted that Vietnam is South Korea's major partner country in rolling out Seoul's Indo-Pacific strategy and urged for continued bilateral ties. The two leaders consented to close ties in the supply chain of key minerals and defense as well. Earlier on the same day, Yoon also had a summit with the Cook Islands Prime Minister Mark Brown, where he pledged to increase the size of the Cooperation Fund for Pacific Island nations. He then met with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and said it felt like meeting a close friend.
제가 작년에 취임 이후에 나토 또 UN 그리고 작년에 G20 또 올해 히로시마 G7 또 이번에 이런 다자 여러 차례의 또 이번에 빌뉴스에서도 얼마 전에 뵙고 이런 수많은 다자 회의와 또 양자 여러 차례 양자 회담을 통해서 이제 우리 저스틴 트루도 총리님은 가까운 친구가 된 것 같습니다.
In response, Trudeau also expressed his gratitude towards South Korea for helping to fight Canada's wildfire.
It's been a year of us working together through wonderful times, but also through difficult times. The support of Korean firefighters was something that was felt deeply across Canada during our difficult summer. And
the Canadian leader also highlighted that Canada is closely cooperating with South Korea in a variety of sectors, including measures to impose sanctions on North Korea. Incheon, Arirang News.
The U.S. has once again warned North Korea of repercussions should it supply weapons to Russia, or raising concerns over deepening North Korea-China-Russia relations. White House National Security Council Strategic Communications Coordinator John Kirby on Wednesday said Washington once again urges North Korea not get involved in military transfers or the Ukraine war, adding the North had previously provided rockets and shells to Russia's mercenary Wagner Group. He also highlighted South Korea-U.S.-Japan defense cooperation commitments, adding that Washington is closely monitoring the burgeoning relationship between North Korea, China, Russia, which he says all view the U.S. as a kind of common enemy. A Chinese delegation is visiting North Korea for the regime's 75th founding anniversary on September 9th. According to Pyongyang state-run media on Thursday, the delegation, headed by Liu Guozong, Vice Premier of the State Council of China, will visit North Korea to participate in a commemoration ceremony. North Korea previously said the events will include another military parade. This follows China having sent a delegation in July to the North on the 70th anniversary of the Korean War Armistice, or Victory Day as called by the regime. These delegation exchanges, largely seen as a show of solidarity, come amid speculation of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's visit to Russia for arms deal talks. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken makes a surprise visit to Ukraine, vowing another billion-dollar aid package to the country. That includes depleted uranium munitions capable of piercing thick armor. Choi Soo-hyung reports.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made a surprise visit to Ukraine on Wednesday local time and announced an additional $1 billion of support. Blinken pledged ongoing U.S. support for Ukraine and stated that plans are in place for support in the areas of energy, security, and humanitarian assistance, in addition to military support and reconstruction efforts.
We will continue to stand by Ukraine's side, and today we're announcing new assistance totaling more than $1 billion in this common effort. That includes $665.5 million in new military and civilian security assistance.
Meanwhile, the support package includes depleted uranium munitions, which are designed to pierce thick tank armor. The munitions use is controversial due to possible health risks. It is the first time the U.S. has provided depleted uranium munitions. The support package includes other anti-tank weapons as well as ammunition, air defense systems, and demining assistance.
I discussed longer-term sustainable security arrangements, which will provide ongoing security assistance and modern military equipment across land, air, sea, and cyberspace, as well as training and intelligence sharing.
Secretary Blinken, on his fourth visit since the war began, has expressed great optimism, noting significant progress in Ukraine's counteroffensive. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba also emphasized the strong support of the United States, describing it as a robust partner.
If the West cannot win in this war, then what is the war that the West can win? And when I say the West, I include Ukraine to this list as well.
Meanwhile, on Wednesday, an attack on a market street in Konstantinivka in Ukraine's Donetsk region killed at least 17 people, including a child. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Diesel prices in the U.S. and Europe had jumped sharply amid oil production cuts in Saudi Arabia and Russia. According to the Wall Street Journal Wednesday, diesel prices in the U.S. and Europe are up more than 40% since the OPEC Plus production cuts in May, while Brent and West Texas Intermediate futures prices are up roughly 13% and 14% since May. Diesel prices have soared much higher as oil from the Middle East and Russia is better suited for producing diesel. The higher diesel prices could be felt mostly in European Union, where more than 40% of cars run on diesel. South Korea is continuing to push its latest cutting-edge weapons at one of the largest international defense trade shows currently being held in Europe. Calling cooperation with South Korea very satisfying, the head of one Polish defense company highlighted similar threats facing Poland and South Korea. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
On day 2 of the 31st International Defence Industry Exhibition in Poland, South Korean defense companies promoted a variety of weapons to win additional orders. Hyundai Rotem announced that it is discussing a second contract for K2 tanks with Poland, following last year's order of 1,000 tanks.
It is a little later than initially planned, but because it is such a large and long-term project, there are quite a few things that need to be discussed.
Hyundai Rotem's representative for Europe added that there are many neighboring European countries, including Romania and Lithuania, that are showing interest in replacing their tanks. Meanwhile, Hanwha Aerospace signed an MOU with state-owned defense firm Polish Armaments Group for the localization of its Chunmoo multiple-launch rocket system. Last year, Poland bought some 280 Chunmoo rocket launchers, and the MOU is expected to lead to a second deal in the near future. On top of this, Hanwha Group promoted its Tangbogo 3-class submarine as the Polish Navy is actively looking to procure submarines as part of its recently relaunched Orca submarine program. S&T Dynamics, a South Korean defense manufacturer, also promoted its products.
Many Polish soldiers had a look. People showed great interest in the 1,500 to 1,700 horsepower transmission for the K2 tank and the 1,000 horsepower K9 transmission.
The CEO of Polish Armaments Group showed his appreciation for South Korea's cooperation and noted that the two countries are very similar in the sense that they both understand the dangers stemming from threats from a neighboring country.
We have entered a very far-reaching strategic cooperation already. If there's a threat to Poland or South Korea, then one country can help the other.
The CEO added that although it may not be visible now, he's confident that cooperation between the two countries will come into effect if one country is attacked. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
The European Union has unveiled a set of laws to curb the power of 6 major tech companies, including Google and Apple. But the Digital Markets Act excludes South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The Digital Markets Act is a set of laws set forth by the EU to curb the power of 6 major tech companies. The 6 companies, Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, ByteDance, Meta, and Microsoft, will be subject to special regulations to prevent abuse of dominant market positions in the bloc. The European Commission announced Wednesday that the 6 gatekeeper companies, meaning large platform operators that act as a kind of gateway between consumers and sellers, will be subject to special regulations under the Digital Markets Act from next year. By applying stricter regulations on such companies, the EU plans to fundamentally block practices in which these companies use their superior market power to raise entry barriers and undermine a fair competition environment. Companies designated as gatekeepers are strictly prohibited from cross-using users' personal information acquired through their services when conducting other service projects unless they have user consent. However, there was good news for South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics, as the company has been excluded from the list despite being mentioned previously as a strong candidate. Companies that fail to comply with the latest EU laws will face major penalties, including a fine of up to 10% of total annual sales. That figure could go up 20% for repeat violations. The gatekeeper companies will be granted a grace period of approximately 6 months to comply with the DMA before full implementation of the rules in March 2024. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Despite seeing a slow recovery, South Korea's chip industry is still facing challenges in terms of production due to external uncertainties. According to the Korea Development Institute on Thursday, semiconductor production was down 14.8% in July compared to the previous year. As the figures for May were down 18.7% on year, July's figures show an improvement over recent months. The average daily value of chip exports also saw an improvement, with the on-year drop shrinking from 14.7% in February to just 20.6% in August. However, economic uncertainties still remain as business sentiment drops over rising oil prices and China's escalating fiscal instability. Showing your passport and boarding pass at departure halls has long been part of the usual airport routine, but that's not the case anymore at South Korea's Incheon International Airport, where passengers' face is replacing passport and boarding passes. Our Lee Soo-jin tells us more.
Passengers at Incheon International Airport are facing new technology. The new Smart Pass service at the country's largest airport streamlines the passenger identification process by using facial recognition technology. Passengers no longer need to take out their passports and boarding passes at departure halls and boarding gates. All they need is their face. Both foreign and South Korean nationals aged 7 and above can register for the new service with 2 ways to opt in. One way is by downloading the SmartPass mobile app and registering by scanning your passport and face. While airports in other countries have already implemented similar facial recognition systems, the one at Incheon Airport is the only one where users can register on mobile apps. Passengers can also register on site at self-check-in kiosks. Just like the mobile app, all you have to do is scan your passport and register your facial biometrics 30 minutes before you need to use the service. The mobile app and the self-check-in kiosks are both available in English, Korean, Japanese, and Chinese. Your facial identification data is also valid for 5 years.
And now you can simply walk up to the camera and go through right away without needing to show anyone your passport or your boarding pass.
So far, people from 46 different countries have registered, according to an airport official. It has also been well received by passengers since it was first introduced in late July during the peak summer holiday season.
And you don't need people, a lot of people manning it, and it's all very automated. You just check in and then you're kind of done.
Before we used to wait a long time, but the identification process is a lot more convenient and faster, which is why I decided to sign up for this service.
Incheon Airport officials say that it'll also enhance security as human biometrics are impossible to duplicate. And it's being done without compromising passengers' privacy.
We regularly delete private passenger information according to related laws.
The airport is looking to expand the service, which is currently available at all 6 departure halls and 16 boarding gates, so that it can also be used at all gates by April 2025. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
For the next couple of days, the city of Seoul will be filled with art vibes with 2 big international art fairs taking place simultaneously. The International Art Fair Frieze Seoul is back together with the annual Korean International Art Fair Seoul as the South Korean capital seeks to become the new art hub in Asia. Shin Se-byuk has the story.
The international art fair Frieze Seoul has returned, with its 2023 joint edition being held with the annual Korean International Art Fair Seoul, commonly known as KIAF, at the COEX in the capital's Gangnam-gu district. Following its successful debut in 2022, Frieze, one of the largest art fairs in the world, has come back to the South Korean capital. This time it features works from over 120 leading international galleries from 30 countries.
Frieze, all Friezes, look for cities that have an amazing sort of cultural landscape and appreciation for creativity. So Seoul, I think, is a fantastic choice. Of course, you see a lot of creativity in all types of fields, whether it's film or fashion or music, of course, art, design.
The main section highlights a variety of works, such as those by master artists such as Pablo Picasso and Henri Matisse. 4 global mega galleries, including the Delegation, a worldwide network, and PACE, are participating in this section. In particular, the Delegation presents Korean artist Baek Nam-jun's iconic masterpiece, TV Buddha. South Korea-based galleries including Kukje and Lian are spotlighting significant global creatives from across generations. The art fair also features 2 smaller sections, Frieze Masters and Focus Asia. In the Frieze Masters section, a diverse array of works from antiquity to the 20th century welcome art lovers.
And there is Focus Asia, a section dedicated to showcasing solo presentations from young galleries based in Asia.
Of those presented, what really catches the eye is a large-scale fabric installation by young South Korean artist Woo Han-na titled The Great Ballroom. Woo, the winner of the inaugural Artist Award at Frieze Seoul, finds such fairs provide artists with opportunities to gain global popularity.
South Korea may be relatively small in size, but it has a vibrant cultural scene and soft power. With a multitude of world-class art galleries converging in Seoul, it's a fantastic place for artists to tap into exciting opportunities.
Running alongside Frieze Seoul is the 22nd edition of KIAF Seoul. This year's KIAF Seoul brings together 210 galleries from 20 countries, including 140 local exhibitors. Frieze Seoul runs until September 9th, and KIAF Seoul is keeping the art vibes flowing until the 10th. 신세벽, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. We had a breezy start to the day, but highs are soaring fast into the 30s in most of the western regions, with a heat advisory remaining in place for Jeollado and nearby areas and parts of Chungcheong-Namdo province this afternoon. Meanwhile, the east of Gangwon-do province is as cool as yesterday. The whole nation will have plenty of autumn sunshine, no chance of passing rain today, and the sunny skies will boost UV rays to high to very high in large parts of Korea. And especially those under heat advisories need to take care as UV rays reach very high levels there, so please have your sun protection handy. Highs will jump nearly 10 degrees from our morning temperatures, and Seoul and Gwangju will be topping out at 32 degrees Celsius. A late burst of afternoon summer heat will continue to be felt across Korea for the next 5 days under sunny skies and should stay this way until the wet change sweeps in. But we do need to put a light jacket on when the sun is not out. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Now, ahead of the G20 summit in India, there is speculation that India could rename itself as Bharat, India's Hindi name. It began with the G20 invitation that read, "The President of Bharat." In fact, Prime Minister Modi's party has been trying to rename the country, saying the name India is a remnant of its colonial past. And recently, the party has been attacking the new opposition bloc named India. the acronym for Indian National Developmental Inclusive Alliance, for using that name. The India bloc hit back that renaming is irrational. Well, local media report that a bill could be passed soon with eyes on whether India will follow Turkey, which has changed its name to Turkey. That is all for today. Thanks for watching.